4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's start the party.
Is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Hey, lovelies. How are you doing? I hope you're having a lovely day. This is Rhea Bow on the panel show. Yep, we're back. It's Wednesday. We've got about 10 in the panel show. We're going to be taking on some pretty hard-hitting stuff today. They don't know what question I'm going to ask them, so it's just totally as it happens, as it were. I hope you're having a lovely day. And in the chat, we've got Dumbbell from Australia, Ed from Canada, Fred from Canada, Joss from the UK, LearnShare from the US, Nanon from Ireland, Noddy from the UK, Prometheus from Canada, and Scott Fire, Scottish, although he is from Australia. I want to say hello to Yasus and Jane Austen in the chat. Thanks for joining us, guys. Right, so today we're going to start it off. We're still working with format here, but I hope you're having a lovely day, right? So I'm going to start it off. I'm going to throw it out to the chat, and I think I'm going to throw it out to. We're going to make a change. I'm going to throw this out to Joss. Let's see what Joss makes of this. Joss, why do people here and amongst ourselves prefer nationalism over globalism? Isn't it like a bit retarded, a bit backward thinking? Why do we not want to reach out to other parts of the globe and work with them? Nationalism versus globalism. Why do we like it, Joss?
Wow, talk about being put on the spot. Well, I just think it is unnatural to try and force everyone to mix up. I think that's about it. I just think, we've got our families and friends, those we feel comfortable with. We all come from different cultures, and each race of people, even, I'm not even talking about the races, people from different countries, even people from different regions within the same country. We have our customs, our traditions, our familiarities, and I think those things should be preserved. I think it is utterly criminal to try and destroy such things for the sake of some global agenda. We kind of heard this said before. If everyone goes absolutely mad at the idea of some animal like the giant panda going extinct, and yet customs and traditions that span hundreds or thousands of years, no one seems to bat an eyelid about those being destroyed because of what basically amounts to invasion. Call me a racist if you like, but it's got nothing to do with racism in my book. It's simply preserving traditions and being amongst those who you love.
So it's like a culture conservation almost. Let's go over to another country. Let's go to Fred. Fred, what's your take on this?
It's quite simple. If you like the livelihood that you have, don't let the entire globe in on your country, because you won't have a country. It's pretty basic. Personally, I think if you believe in the family, then you're not going to believe in globalism.
Oh, that's a damning one, isn't it? Let's go to another country. Let's go to Dumbbell. What's your thoughts on this down in Oz, Dumbbell?
Hi, I think it's a no-brainer. Would you surrender everything you are and have been and could possibly be over to control to somebody else? I mean, there's all these businesses coming around saying, we'll control your finances, hand them over to us and we'll run your life, and everything will just be all these beaming, smiling people on TV endorsing it. It's not that way. political correctness, like globalism's a circle around a spot. It's a circumference, and it pushes in, and it can only create a black hole. And once you lose it, you won't get it back, so that's what I think.
Okay. Let's go over to the US. Learn, share. Globalism versus nationalism. Why nationalism?
Well, I have to echo my brothers from across the world here. To me, it's very simple. Family, community. We have rights. We want to maintain these rights. But also on top of these things, on top of value, family value, neighborhood value, community value, the overall agenda to force individuals in their own nations to accept this globalist agenda of increasing population in other places where we really don't need more people. It's basically gets back to the question of why. What is the intent and purpose?
That's a good one. And let's go to Ireland. Nanon, what are your thoughts on this?
Let me put it this way. It is got to do with the escalation of all of the resources of the planet going in one direction up towards this top elite type of organizations, where the right to earn a living and the resources that belong to each country seem to be migrated upwards, leaving the vast majority of the middle class and the working class without the means to earn a living. And also we have our housing supply being bought up by hedge funds. We have our nursing homes all privately owned. We have the oil and the fishing and the farming controlled by the likes of Monsanto. So basically, I think it's becoming more apparent. It's becoming very apparent that there's some sort of an agenda behind this that's just beyond globalist trade and people just getting on with business. I have great respect for business and for work and all of that, but there seems to be some sort of nefarious plan behind all of this, and also the interference in the culture and the family, the interference in the community, in the culture and the families as well, and this forcing of ethnic states to merge. It's quite obvious with the immigration issue that the social welfare system is going to crack. I mean, anybody with half of a reason, able to reason, can see this coming down the line. So there's something nefarious about the plan. That's what I'd say.
I think there's some lovely words there, guys. Let's go over to Ed Jamin in Canada. Ed, your thoughts on this?
Hi, all. Yeah, there's a couple different ways we got to look at this. First one is politically. So we get a globalist government in. The UN's going to control us. The UN's going to make our laws for us. Do we get the vote? Do we get the vote? Who's going to control us? Who's going to bring in the laws? Who's going to change those laws? Is it going to be some globalist sitting 1,000 miles away that hasn't got a clue of what's going on? Are we going to be controlled by people that aren't even of a similar culture as us? These are all questions we have to ask, and I don't like what I'm seeing, especially with all the laws coming down from the UN, or they're trying to slip them into us. The Paris Accord, you've got it's kind of a globalist agenda. They want to bring pollution down in various countries, and yet they give a free ride to countries like India and China or other developing countries. It's just turning into a whole mess. I refuse to accept globalism, politically or economically. I think we got to take care of our own backyard. And be it tribalism, so be it. Do I want to have people coming over from another country that don't speak the language, have different customs, want to look at life differently than I do, want to bring in, say, Sharia law, for an example? Why do we need Sharia law in Canada? It's coming in. In Ontario, we've already got there's an Islamic political party of Ontario formed just recently. That's an effect of globalism by bringing in people from a different part of the world. And now they want to change the way I'm going to live. What laws I'm going to have to live under? No, thank you. I'm going to fight this.
Damning statements. Okay, I see you, Scabby. And Prometheus, your thoughts on this, also in Canada?
Thanks, Rhea. I overall I agree with what the other panelists have said, but I think there's so much more to it that people aren't understanding or looking at. If you look at the UN's own website, you'll see repeatedly where they're trying to reduce the pride that people have in themselves, whether it be through religion or color or background or ethnicity. If you make that a beige society, it's much easier to control because you're not proud of anything. You're not willing to stand up for anything. And that's just one part of it. This idea of nationalism versus globalism, we've always been a global community, but it's never been dominated at the top, kind of like what Ed was saying, of who was dictating the laws. And sort of like what Nana was saying about why they're doing that and where that resources are going to. I mean, these are all important facts of the whole thing. But the reality of nationalism, I don't think anybody cares, at least in Canada, about immigration. Nobody really cares about immigration, so long as it's done in a way where it's not forced upon them and then told they have the pleasure of paying for it. So what I see with a lot of the people in Canada today is that we've always welcomed immigrants. We've always welcomed people from different places. We've always been able to take that and see those people become Canadian and add to Canadian society to improve it, more often than not. But now we're being told you have to take the worst of the worst and you're going to pay for it, whether you agree with it, like it, want it, or accept it or not. That's just the way it is. And if you say anything about it, you're going to be criminalized for it. And I think that it's probably similar in most other parts in the West. And that's the problem. Whenever you take, I didn't get a UN election card, a voter registration card. So for somebody else that doesn't know about Canada, doesn't deal with the effects of these decisions, doesn't have to mingle with the rest of us, they really shouldn't have a say over what I do or don't do, where I spend my money or don't spend my money in my life.
Okay, there's the internet. And Scotty, what about your thoughts down in Oz there as an expat?
Well, first of all, nationalism and globalism, I think they're very, very polarised statements, or at least that's what the MSM have done, and made nationalism especially into a bad word as such, and tagging it along with racism and xenophobia. And also, the fact that I am an immigrant myself, as it were, I went through the whole paperwork and paid the money and did my time, and I've integrated into society. And I don't have any problem with anyone from any country in the world doing the exact same thing. And as far as refugees are concerned, that's fair enough. If they have problems in their country, if they come through in a legal manner, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But just going on what everybody else was saying about the integration and the amount of immigration, I think once you go past kind of 60-40, then you're on a rocky road. I think you have to have at least 70-30 balance between nationals and immigrants to keep the, as others were saying, keeping the customs, keeping the culture that's individual to each little town and place, whatever country you're in. these are things that have to be preserved. And I have seen it here in Australia, and I have heard about it in the UK, and this is only in the past 5 years, that places are rapidly becoming no-go zones because they've moved certain communities in there and they don't integrate into society, and it ends up being a place where the locals fear going. And I think that's just an instant failure. And again, using the comment, no-brainer. Look, here is what's happening, and here's what will continue to happen if we don't curb this.
Okay, and that's from Scotty Expat down there in Australia, and Mr. Scabby Pants Esquire. Your thoughts, nationalism versus globalism. Why do we prefer nationalism?
Well, in my opinion, nationalism is a concept that's extremely old and needs to be updated. But most people view a nation as an investment for their children and their grandchildren, because the money that you pay in taxes goes to make the very items that so many people want around the world for their countries. But when you talk to the countries or look up the tax revenues for those countries, nobody pays any tax. So what you're doing is you're working and investing in the future, and you're seeing people coming in and using those facilities. And of course, what happens in the end? When 15 years ago, when I was mad on my snookering, we went to a men's institute. Now, the Men's Institute for Snooker was a man's club, which of course these days has gone out of fashion. Now, I can tell everybody here that the reason why women were not allowed in the snooker hall is because men are distracted when around women, and the hall was for playing snooker. So it was a man's sport. Most men followed it, very few women followed it. And so the Men's Institute was created, this one that I used to go to, for men to go and play snooker. That was it, okay? Now, I know that the subject matter isn't about men and women and the rights and wrongs of that. What I'm saying is that it was a paid club, which meant that nobody in the street could just walk in. Then the rules were changed to allow women in. Then shortly after that, the rules was changed to allow their children in. Then they allowed people to come in if they paid £1. Now the club doesn't exist. And yet it had been there for 150 years. And I think the same happens with the country, is that, okay, we can all agree that the concept of a nationhood from an army and a strength point of view might be a bit outdated now. The concept of paying your taxes and expecting those services to be there when you need them, it's sort of, you've got to say to yourself, well, if you want to bring endless people in with no limit, then the concept of taxation needs to be reviewed, because you no longer, if that school and that water board, the gas things and everything else, and the hospitals and the schools and the universities, if these belong to everybody, then, you know, what happened? Somewhere along the lines, it was paid for by the people of this country.
There you go, guys. If you're just joining us, this is Rhea Bowen Long Live Radio. Thank you for joining us. We've got the radio station affiliates coming in. Again, I've got a load of messages that aren't in English, so I can't really help you there. But thank you for tuning in. There won't be any music on this show, but you know you're going to catch us live every Sunday, right? So don't forget that. So we go back to the normal show. I just want to say hello to some lovelies in there. Joy Ambrose, Beverly McLeod, Joss who's in the chat, Steve G, Synthesis Canada. Who else? Yasus, Noddy, the Love Doctor's in the house, LCB. God, I can never say that one. Can I call it Lashy or Akak? One of the two. Learn, share. Night and Day, thank you for doing what you do. And Steve G, thank you for joining us. We're just discussing why we prefer the idea. It seems to make more sense to be nationalistic, although it's been demonized. And it's sort of summing up, it sounds like to me that the panel's saying, hey, look, we need to sort out our own backyard first. before you go inviting other people in and pointing at other people's country saying you need to sort your own backyard out because we haven't sorted our own out? How can you possibly invite people in a stable place when we can't manage our own affairs as they stand? So I want to say to you guys, here's the next question. Why are they driving this forward? Who is driving this forward? Is it an individual state, or are the orders coming from somewhere else to drive this forward? Have they lost sight of they represent the people, or have they just gone off on their own? And we're going to start that off this time with Nanon. Your thoughts on that one, darling?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's a question that we grapple with a lot, and there's many here on this panel and many other researchers out there who've done a lot of work into finding out exactly where this globalist idea comes from and what shape it's taken. We have our own ideas about it, and it's very obvious at this stage now that there is an unseen group of people behind the actual people who front up the various organizations. Like we know that they have the military-industrial complex, which does not necessarily belong to any country, probably NATO-based or UN-based or whatever. We have the banking, or the financial industrial complex, if you want to call it. We have the religious end of things with the and from what we're seeing, this is happening. This is happening at a very fast pace recently. And it's quite obvious that the forces behind this are lying extremely low. Almost, I would say, secret societies or backers of some description. The people we see out front, like the politicians and the personalities and all of that, they are just they're put out there to implement the plan. But we'll just throw it out there as to, exactly who people think are the planners.
No problem. Dumbbell, you're up. What do you think?
Well, I'd just like to chuck it on the table. I mean, one of the cabal's main objectives, one of the main end game objectives is depopulation. And that was going to be ushered in by Hillary's 8 years of decimation, but that's been knocked on its backside a little bit. A lot of their plans have been knocked on the backside a little bit, but you still got Buffett giving 37 billion, and the Gates is giving 30 odd billion, and a lot of weird, funky things happening with polio over in Africa and America. Some weird things seeping through. What if, under a globalist situation, that the plebs, the useless eaters like us, were finally beaten down with the ability to counter that and the ability to speak up against it, that they could just go full slather when they wanted to, when the time came.
Okay, that sounds good to me. And now we're going to go from Australia to the US. Lernshare, your thoughts on the last question.
Oh, to me, it goes back to intention. We're all been made aware that there was intention to do these things, and through research, it seems to be the more we learn, the more we realize, the more we have as citizens, our civil duty to hold our representatives accountable. It through this information, I'm seeing so much that it's been passed without our knowledge. So now we're being made aware after the fact of many of these laws that have been passed. And now what I'm seeing is, okay, and who has what to gain. So each group that I'm part of, that we're studying and researching from all angles, because not to trust. So we take everything with a grain and do our own research and come to our own conclusions, and we discuss them together. But yeah, it still seems that it's the intentions of the people that are making these laws and are attempting to pass these laws that I have in question.
That's a good one as well. Okay, let's go to Fred. Fred, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think it's all right directly into the UN. The UN is a terrible organization. It needs to be disbanded. We need to put our borders up. We actually need to defend and love our countries. And if we don't, we will definitely lose them.
Fred is so reliable. Let's hear from Canada again. Ed, your thoughts on it?
What was the question again, Maria? Gone off on tangents. Can you restate it, please?
Yeah, it's what it was. So it was based on what's driving this globalism, this influx, this how we feel that we're losing control of this culture that we've come to love, your culture and all the different people's culture in here. Why are they doing it? What's driving them? That was basically it, Ed.
Okay, someone's going to be benefiting from this, and I assume it's going to be the cabal or the cabals worldwide. So right now we haven't had any serious wars since Trump got in. Russia's been keeping a lid on things. The only real political strife we have is in South Africa. Historically, if you can get people to mix it up and get different clashes of ideas, you can get civil wars. One that happened not too long ago was in the Balkans. There's peace there now. And because people separated basically into ethno-states. Very peaceful over there now. Have we not learned from history? Now, who's going to benefit from this? Again, it's the bankers. Every time there's a war, the bankers do very, very, very well. It's us, the people, that suffer. We get huge amounts of public debt thrown upon us to pay for these wars. The second angle to look at this is the UN. You got almost 200 countries in the UN. 2/3 of them are Islamic countries. It's common, well, it should be common knowledge by now to everyone that Islam wants to spread and control the world. What better way to invade a country is peacefully through, paying off politicians or the elite, or bribing them, or, I don't know, holding a gun to their head, or in the case of Canada, getting a seat on the global in the UN when Trudeau does get kicked out. So he's going to benefit. He doesn't care about us. It's self-serving. It's the elites that are going to make money over this hand over fist, and globalist corporations. Look at the TPP that was signed recently. You give complete control of businesses and their laws, and if a state enacts anything that's going to cause companies to lose money, they can sue the host country for those losses. Again, the elites, the people with lots of money, the powers that be that control us or that are trying to take control from us, they're the ones that benefit. It's lose, lose, lose for us as the general population.
Oh, that's a great one. And let's go to the UK. Joss, your thoughts on it?
Sorry to be a pain. Could you just remind me yet again, what was the question? Just
the question was what's driving it? Why does it all seem to be moving together? Why does it feel like they're not representing the people anymore? They've lost sight of their representatives of the people, and all these nations seem to be working together. What's driving this to happen, Joss?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, to my mind, this is whichever the stage of the game the cabal are playing at the moment. It's about mass destabilization. They don't want anyone anywhere having a sense of identity, of having any roots. The very thing that nationalism revolves around, a sense of roots. We're seeing this all over with the mass immigration. It is a destabilizing factor. It's unsettling for everyone. I mean, in the last few days, people I've spoken to who aren't really active in, they're just regular people out there. They're not researching, looking into this like we are. Everyone I've spoken to, they've all got the same concerns. So this is unsettling for, I'd like to think, the majority of people, the silent majority. So yeah, you've got the mass immigration, you've got grubby little leftists trying to push the LGBT agenda into schools, infant schools. That conversation came up earlier in the day. The whole lot, the globalist cabal, are trying to destabilize everyone, so we're all running around like headless chickens. And once we're all completely divided, then they will seize absolute power, or that's what they're trying to do. But I think the pushback against it is probably a bit bigger than they anticipated.
Some positive words at the end before we fall down a hole. Okay, let's go over to Prometheus. Your thoughts, darling?
I kind of lean towards what he just said as well. I mean, the idea of demoralizing folks is how you control folks. When you feel like, you have nothing to live for, when you have nothing to stand for, you're more easily dominated. And we've seen in history how people just kind of lay down and die. Why are they doing this? Who's doing this? Well, there's all kinds of speculation. It usually comes back, just like always in history, to the same group of folks that try to dominate the rest of us. This is done today largely through corporations, through lobbying, and usually with the same tool, money. And the politicians, they're not the power brokers. They're not the ones that make these decisions. This is all done externally. And when it comes to the specifics of what we deal with today, for all these things, it's again, comes back to money, comes back to control, and it comes back to those that benefit from that. These elite, the cabal, all whatever label you want to throw to it, we do their work for them. We pay them to do this to us. They're not going to use their own money. They're going to use our money. And they do that counting on our reaction to their action. If we don't like what they're doing as a human race, we'll stand up eventually. We keep working towards that end. But it's kind of allowing people to understand what the basics are and who they are and why they do it. One of their agendas, reduce the population. That was mentioned. It's absolutely true. It's always been the truth. They can't do it like they used to, so they get us to do it for us, divide us, conquer us, get rid of any kind of nationalistic ideal that you might stand up for. So they turn it into a bad word. They turn it into a dirty word, to make you feel embarrassed or feel bad about it. But it always comes back to the same folks doing it.
Interesting. Scotty, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, straight off on the nationalism thing as well, then it's always considered isolationist. But look at what's happening now. We are all united in our nationalism. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, who are voices out against us. As far as the UN is concerned, I consider the UN to be the mouthpiece of the octopus, which has got its suckers into everything in our life. And I'll go again with I don't know who it was said about these people not being voted in. It's the exact same with the EU. These people aren't voted in, and the EU's just, you can see that as a moment of what they're trying to do globally. And just mirror what everybody else is saying. They are the ones that should be focusing on, and their policies are the ones that we really need to tear apart and make easy to understand for the masses, because if they knew what the actual plans were, people would be up in arms, but they're just so docile about it because it's everything they're getting fed is doublespeak.
There you go, guys. So we've just heard from Canada, Australia, Ireland, the UK, and these are people that they didn't know that I was going to ask this, guys. This is off the cuff stuff. They absolutely had no idea. And I think that's why we're getting the quality that we're getting. If you're just joining us on the radio stations, this is Ria Bow on Long Live Radio. Welcome and thank you. I want to say hello to some other people in the chat as well. Yasus, a great YouTube channel. Thank you, Yasus. You're welcome. Anybody in there that I knew it, welcome. I knew it. If I've missed you, come say hello. So now I've got to ask a pretty tough question, right? So get ready, guys, because this is a toughie, and there is no, I don't believe, definitive answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it nevertheless, and I'm going to send it straight over to Mr. Scabby Pants Esquire. Mr. Scabby Pants Esquire, what a great name. Who are the cabal?
Okay, I'm the radical one, I think, out of everyone here, because things I say don't sound sort of, they're not easy to believe, but if you put a bit of thinking and thought into it, it points straight to you've got to form a picture correctly, you've got to add two things together, that is wealth and history. You've got to watch what's happened to money over history and who's had that money. I personally believe that entities such as the British Empire, they don't disappear, they change shape. And the banks of today are the sort of power base behind the British Empire. That's how it morphed into the banks of today. Prior to that, you have to say who was running the show. I believe that what we see here is a cabal of families that for thousands of years have pulled the strings because they've held the wealth. And they are still pulling the strings today. They just create new institutions with new names like the UN, like all the rest of the different entities that they spin up, like, dare I say, some religious organisations. And that's not to put anyone down who follows any of these organisations. What I'm saying is we all have spirituality, but I think it's been exploited by certain religions for power reasons. And those religions are controlled by these families. And the power base stays within them because they pass it on through the generations. So I think if you're looking for any real pointers, you have to start looking back through time at the different power bases that existed prior to, let's go back. We got the Roman Empire. Who run that? Where did the Roman Empire disappear to? It seemed to slip off into the background, rather like the British Empire. And I honestly think that it's certain families within Europe who now call themselves royalty. And I believe that they portray the most benign view to everybody, and behind the scenes, I don't believe that that's the case. I believe that they pull all the strings, have always pulled all the strings, and are still pulling all the strings.
There you go. That's quite a damning one, guys. That's bloodlines. Okay, where should we go from here? Let's go to Ireland. The cabal, Nan. What's it about? Who is it?
Well, I think it goes back. Generations, or perhaps where the royalty or the kings and queens who always controlled are still in control. They believe themselves, according to their own customs, that they have a God-given right to rule over the planet, and us as we're just chattel to them, basically. That they believe that everything runs more smoothly when they control and own everything, including us. So we're all like widgets to them. It takes various forms, and it's like an octopus. The tentacles are basically go into every aspect of our lives, from, but what we recognize on the surface level would be definitely the World Bank, the UN, the Council on Foreign Relations, the 13 Illuminati families, the bloodlines of the Illuminati, those types of controls. They're the ones behind the scenes that I was talking about. Then it goes down into the governments, the politicians, the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations are the ones on the ground implementing the agenda. I think we started off with the nationalist thing. I think that the strong rise in nationalism and patriotism is a direct response to the fact that this plan has gone a step too far. And I think that has awoken the vast majority of people. Up to that point in time, we weren't watching. People were not awake. They weren't watching. But now the plan has escalated, and we're gone over a red line at this stage. And I think what it's done is woken up a lot of people. So the nationalist thing is the antidote to this globalist agenda. And people are beginning to call themselves patriots now. And I saw a very good comment in YouTube there, that if there are black spots on the planet, why don't we go and sort of try and sort out help the countries themselves that might be in trouble and the people of these countries, rather than come and trying to destroy everything that people have built. So the cabal, who are they? Throw it back out there again to the panel.
Okay, I'll jump in there, guys. If you're just joining us, this is Ria Bo. I feel awful not getting your messages and your comments. I get them on a Sunday, so I feel quite horrid that I'm not getting your comments. It feels so wrong, in the YouTube and all the other messages that I'm getting. But Sunday, I'll do my best to get them, and I do get them, don't I? But now, let's go over to Dumbbell, the cabal. Who are they?
Oh, they're a mysterious little bunch, aren't they? It doesn't begin and end with Soros, or even the Rothschilds, believe it or not. They're Zuckerbergs. They're the face. The Illuminati, as it's called, the religious side of the Illuminati, they follow a lot of Egyptian law. The Pindar, for example, is involved in the private parts, let's say, of Osiris, the missing private parts of Osiris. That even bleeds into social culture when you got movies like Goldmember, believe it or not, pushing that occult agenda without people even knowing they're watching it. So there's people that in castles way back. You've got people like the von Reibnitz, dare I say, and oldie families like that that are on the periphery. But if you see the photo and hear their name, they're not as high as you think, because the people that really control this are unnamed and unidentified. But they took a big kick to the butt in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost. That was a planetary smash in the face for the cabal, and they haven't regained their footing. They'll rattle their saber, same as the Euro Illuminati trash are trying to sound big now. I'd like to see Britain hold hard against them, actually, but that's just my opinion. But who they are, there's, oh crikey, there are religious sides, there's agnostic sides, there's science sides. It's basically based on a structure. For example, like the Satanistic structures, organized Satanism is the Black Brotherhood, the Red Brotherhood. You've got the Minerval Order of the OTO, Ordo Templar Orientis. Knights East-West goes up, Pelican versus Eagle, Knights Templar Grand Inspector. Then you've got the TAP candidates like the Skull and Bones and all those guys. They go up, that level goes up. Knights, Patriot, Skull and Bones Leadership, Council of Foreign Relationships, and up. And then today's Illuminati, you've got novice witches, craft practicing witches, master witch, Asmodeus neophyte level, Sisters of Life, Mothers of Darkness, Grandmaster is equal to that. Epissimist goes up a higher that. You know, you've got original Bavarian Illuminati, novice one, Fellowcraft Minerval, Master Illuminator Minor, Illuminatus Major. You've got things like this that aren't in our lexicon, but they're there. And knowing about it is the one way we beat them. And they're getting beaten. They're getting soundly beaten in the hidden parts just as much as they're getting their butts kicked in the military industrial complex right through to the Vatican. All three headquarters are under attack at the moment.
Wow. Yeah, that's that's why we're getting Dumbbell on the show, guys. He's going to be joining us on Sunday Long Live as well once he's got his microphone sorted. Dumbbell, if you could just back off your mic a bit, that would good. But I know it's not perfect, but that was pretty super. There was some proper name dropping there, I've got to say. Have you not finished, Dumbbell, or do you want to finish?
No, I just got my microphone gaffer taped to my head. I'll take it off.
Excellent, proper Aussie style. Let's hear from Canada. Fred, the Cabal, who are they?
Well, if we're here in Canada, it's the Royals. They own Canada, lock, stock, and barrel. Our Prime Minister is the first minister to the Queen. And they don't like anybody to know that. But it's actually common knowledge. Nothing we do is going to matter until we all wake up. Like I said, take care of our own countries and put up our own borders, take care of them, bring in who you want. Otherwise, what will happen is what happened here with the Liberal Party. They were taken over because people will not engage, they will not get out and vote, and they don't care as long as their bellies are full.
And that is so Fred, fat and happy. Let's hear also from Canada. Ed, your thoughts. Who are the Cabal?
Well, has anyone heard of the Pace? Apparently they came over from France a couple hundred years ago. They're families that are spread out amongst America. Whoever the Rothschilds are working for, that's part of the Cabal. In Canada, we have what's called the Power Corporation. And the people that are running that, you've got, they've intermarried with various political leaders, intermarriage there between former premiers into the family. I think it's de Rosier. Don't quote me on that. No one's mentioned the Vatican yet. The Vatican has huge amounts of wealth. And if you think about it, the Vatican's also pushing this compact on migration. So they're going to benefit from this somehow also. There's a few groups of Saudi royalty that have wealth beyond imagination. And no one's mentioned the leader of China. China has amassed huge amounts of... Whoever controls that must be part of the Cabal. Next one up.
Okay, here we go. Let's go. We've done none on Fred. I think we've done everybody. Oh no, Scotty, your thoughts. Who are the Cabal?
Well, there's not much I can add that nobody's mentioned. Pretty conclusive there. But somebody mentioned history. I think we have to go way back in history. And I think there's a lot we're not being told, maybe from probably about 12,000 years ago onwards, or 12,000 BC, sorry. There's a big gap where basically there's nothing happened, but like Bibles and all the rest of it just appeared. I think there's something we're not being told from way back in history that is involved in all this. As Dumbbell said, the Egyptian, worshipping the Egyptian type religion. I think that goes way back further than just the Egyptians, and I think that's something that needs to come out as well, because it'll help us understand what the whole thing is about.
Okay, there you go, guys. There's some answers there. So there is no definitive, we think of, I'm assuming that we think of that pyramid thing, and that pyramid thing ends up at a point, like a point of focus, somebody, some family, a bloodline in the singular is calling the shots here, but nobody really knows why they always seem so powerful and we don't, where we are many and they are few. That is pretty undeniable, isn't it? And it seems to fall back into bloodlines. I'm new to this. I haven't got Dumbbell's knowledge, but and the other people's knowledge. But to me, the more I started to look in it with Saxe-Coburg, Gotha, the Witten dynasty in Europe, these bloodlines, they don't make much noise, They're not noisy. It's not like US politics, all noisy. It's not like that. It's very benign. I heard the word benign and I agree with that. That's my view on it. And the art of war is to subdue the enemy, is it? It just is. If you can subdue an enemy, you're laughing. You need far less energy to go and take it, don't you? If everybody's docile and asleep, and they're not asking questions, and they're not going, hold it a minute, what's this about? So you guys in the chat, put it in there. Can you find a definitive part of who is the cabal? And we've got LearnShare just turned up again, so he hasn't had his shout at this. LearnShare, who's the cabal?
The cabal, as I've researched it, is mainly deep state DC. But it's all central banking around the world, of course. Then we have the Queen and the nefariousness. Actually, most people aren't aware of. I'm not calling out just the Queen. I'm just talking about people in power calling shots, and it may not be as it seems. There may be people we don't see with more money really calling shots. And what I've noticed is it seems to be tied in directly with the Vatican. So from those 3 points, I can see a clear connection, but also central banking.
Okay, you finished. Sorry, I didn't realise you finished there. So central banking, okay, and we sort of can follow the money, can't we? So the one thing about all this, excuse me, we can't really find solid answers, can we? But we can see symptoms of what's going on. And one of the big ones to chuck in the pot that I'm going to ask the panel here is, I feel there's been such a massive, and I mean massive with a capital M, loss of trust in the public representatives, i.e. the governments of said nations. The trust is gone, and I still stand by. If you don't have trust, you don't have nothing. You're going to live in a world of darkness, skepticism, nihilism, the value. You don't see nature anymore. It's all you see is just darkness because the trust is gone. And being as solution based as we can, I'd like to ask, how do we begin to restore that trust? Is it a case where we look into our own communities to restore trust because we have completely lost faith in our so-called public representatives? Do we start there? Or is it a case where we're going online to develop communities, to find the trust, to feel out so we don't feel alone? Trust, how do we rebuild trust? Scotty, Australia.
Well, over the past year especially, that trust definitely has been brought from the online community that we have right here at this moment in time. But what we need to get out there in the public domain. And as far as I see it, the only way to do it quick would be for an MSM breakdown, and they get exposed for what they really are. But essentially, communities, in your own community, you have to spread the word. But how you can do it, on a face-to-face value, it all depends where you live. Essentially, I mean, I'm in quite a very, very left liberal area, and for me to go out there and hand out leaflets or whatever would be a difficult gig. I would do it for the cause, but I know it would be a difficult gig. So I think it is dependent on your environment. We have to get it through television or radio some way, to get the impact that we need.
Well, you're on the radio, darling. We're going across a whole bunch of platforms here. If you're just joining us, this is Ria Bow, and we took on the original question of nationalism versus globalism, and why do most of the people that certainly I think we come across prefer nationalism, although it's become a really dirty word. Nanon, in Ireland, how do we rebuild trust? How can you see any trust building in Ireland?
No, Ria, unfortunately not. I think Ireland is without any hope at the moment. But I think the trust issue, the trust has been broken because this plan has become apparent. This plan has been decloaked. And people have known for a very long time that something is wrong. Something is definitely not right. They feel it and they know it, but they're not exactly sure what it is. So a lot of people have begun to dig, and they've found out bits and pieces of what the plan is, and they see it panning out in their communities, and they don't like it, and they don't know what to do about it yet. And so the trust in all these institutions have broken up, and you see comments coming out like all the political parties are the same, two sides of the same coin, this left-right divide. When we're sort of looking at it and we're saying, doesn't matter which side of the divide you're on, this plan is motoring ahead. So all these divisions that they have us giving us the illusion of choice, we're beginning to wake up and see, well, hang on a second now, this seems to be, it doesn't matter what party is in power or who's in power, what council is saying, because these orders are coming from somewhere else, and then people are beginning to see that. So then they're saying, well, these guys are not actually, they don't have a say, so they're lying. They're actually promising stuff that they're in no position to deliver. So the emperor has no clothes is springs to mind. I don't want to keep going on and on about it, but the trust at the moment now is with the individuals themselves, and also with their family and their communities. And how we build this trust that you're talking about is going to be a really important issue for us in the future as to who we are going to trust. And at the moment, we're trusting ourselves.
There you go. And here we find ourselves as well. I won't go into any more. Let's go for Joss. Trust. What's going on? How do we rebuild this? And where are you finding it right now?
Well, trust. What a big question. Okay. I remember an incident. It's got to be going back about, 15 years ago. I was, before I met my wife, I was living in a bed set, and I can remember no one living in this this bed set. You know, it was a block, lots of rooms, and nobody in these rooms really spoke to each other. You know, typical British way, we all kept ourselves to ourselves. And one night, or late afternoon, there was a power cut, and all of a sudden, everyone's doors started opening, and people started communicating for the first time, probably in months. And they started trying to come up with a solution to the problem. And you know, they were looking at the oh god, what's it called? Like the RCD box, etc. I mean, it soon turned out there's nothing anyone could do because it was a power cut that affected the entire street. But the point I'm making is, in a crisis situation, people start communicating, they start working together. And the Western world is in a state of crisis, but the mainstream media are trying really, really hard to silence that. You know, the mainstream media, you know, all we hear all day is diversity is our strength, you know, ignoring the fact that people are getting stabbed and women and children are getting raped, and our children's minds are being corrupted with the most hideous things in schools. And, you know, parents have got no rights to stand against it. You know, the schools have got more authority than the parents, or it's certainly heading that way. But yeah, everything's played down. Everything's normal. Nothing to see here. But, you know, the people aren't that stupid. And, well, as I said in an earlier comment, you know, pretty much everyone I've spoken to over the last couple of days, they all recognize there's a problem. There is something not right with the world at the moment. And so straight away, we start communicating about that problem, and immediately we've got a shared interest. So we've got something in common with each other. And this is where trust is built. And the establishment, the cabal, whatever, they hate it. They hate it. And what do they call us all? They call us all far right, white supremacist, Nazi, fascist bigots. You know, the Owen Joneses of this world. I cannot stand that creep. But this is it. They keep trying to silence us, but the trust will build naturally. This is what's going on. I also think, you know, it is very important to detox as well. You know, as you know, Rhea, and some others will. We, the Ambrose clan, we love going camping, just getting away from our environment, and you know, just detoxing. And I mean, I'm sat here using my smartphone to speak to everyone, but I've just bought myself a dumb phone because I'm thinking during the daytime when I'm at work, I need to just get away from being connected with the net, get away from constant notifications, and get back in touch with the environment around me. You know, notice the stars and green grass and trees and blue skies and things like that. It's all one and the same, I think. Detoxing and letting nature take its course. That's pretty much it, I think.
That's lovely, Joss. Thank you. And let's go over to Canada this time. Let's go Ed first this time. Ed, your thoughts, trust. Where are you finding it?
You know what? I'm not even going to look for. Let's ignore trust. Take trust out of the equation completely. Our governments have, dare I say it, they screwed us over completely. We're being dictated to beyond a doubt. Look at all the crazy laws our idiot prime ministers brought in. So we're living under a dictatorial power. So forget about trust. Now that brings me to what's happening in France. Mainstream media has manipulated everything what we see as far as what this yellow vest movement is. We see people getting shot. We see all kinds of stuff getting destroyed on the streets. And everyone thinks, well, they're upset about something. So the mainstream media says, oh, it's got to be because the price of fuel got raised. That's what everyone's fighting about. That's a crock. Recently, I was lucky enough to get a hold of, speak to Roman Light in France. He's one of the main leaders for the Yellow Vest movements. And he says, this movement is not about carbon taxes. It's not about the price of fuel. It's not about immigration. It's not about all the other things, taxation, what do you see? What this Yellow Vest movement is about, and they will not stop protesting until France and the people of France get the power back. And how they want to get the power back is they want to enact recall legislation, or to get 3% of the population that can do a forced referendum. People are fed up being dictated to in France. Now, this movement is spreading across the world. Problem is, the powers be, YouTube, Facebook, they're filtering what we see. We're getting lied to on so many fronts. If we as nations or private nations or citizens can stand up together, it's not about color, it's not about race, it's not about the economic status you have, it's not about religion. This is a peaceful movement. We, the people, want to take back the power from the government that dictate to us, that rule us. We want recall legislation, or we want forced referendums with only 3% of the population forcing a referendum. And what this will achieve is we, the people, 51%, can force a policy change, or we can take down bad policy. Forget about trust. Let's bring the power back to the people. And this is what the Yellow Vest movement is. Anyone that's listening, look into Roman Light Yellow Vest in France. That's what it's all about. It's all about a peaceful movement. Next.
Right, okay, let's hear from Fred as well while we're in Canada. Fred, trust, where do you find it?
Trust, I find my wife, my family, my kids, my close friends. That's trust. After that, I look around. The percentage of the people that vote in this country is pathetic. They will not join a political party. They will vote for a party, but they will not join it. They will not decide who they're going to have run their country for them. The question is, do they even deserve trust anymore? That's the big question. I'm done.
Okay, lovely. And let's go down to Scotty. Trust, where do you find it?
Oh, I thought you asked me already.
I did. I think I did,
okay.
actually. Scotty, sorry, I already did. Yeah, I'm not keeping track of this. Sorry, darling.
Well, basically what Fred said, Rhea, about the people that are close to you. That's where you find it first off. Everything else, you have to question it all the time.
Okay, Dumbbell, trust, where do you find it?
Trust? Oh, but people can say they trust a politician or a government, but they don't really, if they're going to be honest. And people the world over are redefining what's important is your trust in trust itself. And people are redefining that around the planet now. They're redefining who they should trust. Some people are pink-pilled and they're deciding they trust a certain person, and it fills them up with all this disinfo, and they run around the room like a deflating balloon, wide-eyed and amazed. Some just, have heard it all 100 times before. So who do we trust? How do we trust? Well, family and friends, yeah, nailed it. But who do we redefine our areas of trust? Well, and we're also talking about a static playing field. We're looking at a static, one-dimensional playing field on a pad here at the moment. You're forgetting that there's a QAnon team out there that's going to bust some serious information that's going to actually help bring down the AP and Reuters wire, which feed all the fake news media around the planet, basically. that's going to happen. Some deep, dark, truthful mirrors are going to be put up against Facebook, and 2019 is going to be a really big year, you know. And also, let's not forget that there's 3 basic strongholds of the cabal on the planet, and that's Washington, D.C., London, its center of London, which is its own city, remember, and the Vatican City. You've got military-industrial complex and the deep state political American movement in D.C. They control a lot. You've got a heck of a lot out of the Fleet Street arm controlling the press. A large amount of Freemasonry is controlled out of there, the dark Freemasonry. So much. I can get some actual numbers for the next show, but and of course the Black Papacy operating out of Rome, who let's not forget about that whole media blackout that just went on. Cardinal Pell, who was the third in charge and boss of the finances, he just got convicted on 5 child sexual molestation charges here in Australia. It got blacked out by the media, and everybody seems to be not talking about it. But there's some deep, dark, truthful things going on there too. So they're all getting attacked at one time, is my point. And I'll shut up now.
It's no problem at all. Learn, share, trust. Where do you find it? Do you have any trust in your government left? Where's the trust? Talk about trust.
Oh, first of all, we've learned not to trust politicians. We've been misrepresented, putting it lightly. Trust. That is a word that, to me, the way I see it, I trust an individual to do what they think is going to benefit them or their family the most. So to me, trust has a different meaning. It's not as general as I'm hearing. But to reestablish a trust, let's take in the States here, for instance, we look at the resignations and the firings. It's both sides, right and left, which used to be, we used to have in the States here a liberal and a leftist and a conservative and a right wing. Well, we don't have any of that anymore. It's straight left or right. All right, it's liberal or conservative, period. There's like no separation anymore. But what I've noticed is going through and seeing since Trump's election, all the resignations are from both sides. And most people, they miss that. You know, it's information that is open, available, and, you know, pay attention to that. But also regaining trust. Okay, people are seeking out the truth, but please use caution. For every one of us seeking the truth, there's someone out there seeking our belief. So, yeah, this trust, to regain it, well, we need to reclaim truth, and as best we can. And take note of what's happened, what's happening. I keep notes. I suggest everyone keep note. However they do it. I'm old school. I go ink to parchment. That's my way. But what I've noticed is the need to reclaim and rebuild. Each nation needs infrastructure. We need to reestablish, and we need to completely, from the top down, start over with our schools instead of all of these misteachings, which I've been observing for a while. Depending on your location, you're getting a different story. It's going to take a lot to reclaim and restore trust in a general manner, but I see solutions within these problems, as many of us do. It's practical application of common sense and accepting our civil duty, our responsibility as civilians to hold our representatives accountable. That sounds like an insurmountable task, but what I'm observing is when you get the numbers, you can do it.
There you go. Here's some words from LearnShare in the US. Mr. Scabby Pants, trust. Where do you find it, and do you have any left in the government?
Oh, God. Trust. I don't know where to start. I think I'm the worst person to ask, really, because I got no trust at all. No trust at all in the government, no trust in the system, no trust at all in the television, in the news, newspapers. I see a country that is being divided on purpose, and it's always the same tactics they use. They split you up, they divide you, they throw one side against the other side. It's all designed to destroy trust in each other. So at the moment, I'm sort of on the wrong side of it all, really. I can't find trust. And then I decide I've had enough of this chicken shed and I'm getting out. So I bought a barge and I get down onto the canals where I'm faced with a future living on a barge and being on my own with my dog and doing my computing and my research. And I fancy doing a bit of writing as well. But and I get down there and discover a whole community there. And oh my God, there's people down there and I'm starting to like them because, you know, they come and help me and they don't want any money, you know? And for me, that is something I've been trying to do all of my life in a country that is impossible to do that in because we're encouraged to tread on each other's faces to get on. So perhaps there is hope for me in the community of the barges, you know, perhaps there is a little bit of England left down there that I can go and get to know and learn to trust again because, you know, I have, you know, I mean, it's not just the government, it's everything, you know. When I was at school, I trusted my teachers and they taught me nothing. You know, I learned more when I left school. I mean, it's just a whole history of my entire life of being let down by the powers that be. And I believe it's designed that way. It's designed to demoralise. It's designed to keep you constantly struggling so that you will get up and go to work and not complain. Your life is too busy. I've already heard it said in here tonight, you know, I'm too busy to do this. Yeah, because that's the design, is to keep you busy. When I was on the sick for a while and I had very little money, I realised that a very valuable lesson, and that valuable lesson was that you don't need a lot to live on. What you need is to lower your ambitions. And when you do that, you discover that you're actually part of a big con. You're being told through the television that you need all these things. And all those things then take all of your life to get. And all you're doing really is being enticed into your slave role and to work and pay and work and pay. And, you know, you get to the kids growing up and they've gone. You got your house that you work for and you're in your 50s and you look at your wife maybe and you suddenly realise you don't know each other anymore because you haven't lived your life for the last 20 years. You've been living a dream that you thought you needed, when in actual fact it isn't until the end or nearly the end you realise that you've been on the wrong road all along. And I believe it's all designed this way. It's designed to split us up. It's designed to keep us alone. It's designed to keep us desperate. It's designed to keep us poor. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm just a victim on this subject, I'm afraid.
There you go, guys. I'm going to jump in there. If you're just joining us, this is Ria Bow on Long Live Radio. I've got to be honest, I know it's on one of my shows and everything, but I've got to say, I think this show is one of the most honest things I've heard in a long, long time, with so much substance to it. I'm really quite inspired. It's kind of a bit dark, but then there's some dark stuff going on, but the level of real and the level of honesty and the level of knowledge as well, I'm just blown away by what I'm hearing. You know, we're still developing the format for this show for you guys. This all feels very restrained and grown up, but to put something in one video, because they're huge generalized topics, aren't they? We haven't drilled in. It's gone naturally deep into certain topics, but at the same time, there's a level of real in this show and a level of honesty you rarely get, I tell you. And none of these guys knew these questions were coming. This is so not scripted. So guys, I want to thank you for doing this. I've got to say, I've really enjoyed listening to you. It's not often I do the grown-up thing on a show, but I really, really enjoyed this. I hope I've said hello to everybody in the chat. Thank you for being patient with me. It just feels wrong not to get your comments, but I will get them Sunday. And for any of the radio stations, tuned in, we will be live all day Sunday. Just go to our website and you'll find all the details that you need there. And I'm just loving what I'm hearing. Right, I'm going to go around the panel that's left and I'm going to ask them if there's something that they would like to bring up. And let's move this out of the topic. I've loved what we've discussed though. And who was the last to speak? Probably, I think it was Joss. Joss, is there anything you would like to bring up? This is going to be the last segment in the show.
Anything I'd like to bring up? I don't know. I think we've covered some great discussion tonight. I don't know. I think it's really good hearing everyone's opinions, everyone's takes on things, and I think we may not necessarily agree 100% with each other, but we're all generally heading in the same direction. And again, this comes back to trust again. I think accepting the fact that we may have slightly differing views. We wouldn't be in this chat, we wouldn't be on Discord and having regular discussions during the week if we didn't have trust for each other. We trust that we're heading in the same direction. That's it. I think I know I've mentioned to you, Ria, and I've mentioned in other offline off radio live chats we've had during the week. I think the necessity now is we're a bunch of very awake people. We all know what's going on in the world. We're all of a similar mind, and we are all sharing articles amongst ourselves, so we're kind of preaching to the converted, and now is the time to organize. And at this point, it's a perfect opportunity to do a plug for the girlies in the chat. My wife, Joy, she's busy contacting lots of girls connected with Discord and some outside, and she's doing this, and thanks for setting this up as well, Ria. She's doing this girls only chat, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant thing because as I've stated, and this is an incredibly bigoted thing to say in the current year, but men are hunter-gatherers and women are homemakers and very good at organising. They're much better at organising than men, generally speaking. And I would like to see this. This is a bit of a personal fantasy. Excuse me, my wife's coughing in the background. This is a bit of a personal fantasy that I'd like to see. Nothing kinky, I promise. But I would love to see all the blokes we tend to get together, like the lock-in on a Friday night, for example. We tend to get together and we have a good old live chat. It does seem to be very men dominated. It's just the way it is. But for the idea, this is the fantasy that I'd like to see. The idea that we blokes get together and we discuss things, we come up with ideas. How about whatever ideas we come up with, we give it over to the girls and we say, here's an idea, take it, run with it. You organise something because you're going to do a much better job than we blokes can. That's about it. I think it's a great idea.
Oh, I think that's great. Yeah, we know it. Girls organise better, right? Just saying. Mr. Scabby, you had one. Let's go to Mr. Scabby Pants Esquire. Do you want to throw your one out there?
Yeah. If anyone's wondering about the name, it was chosen by my kids when I bought them a PlayStation for one Christmas, and their dad had to play, so he needed a name, and they said that. So that's where it come from. I think, I honestly think the biggest problem we've got is centralisation, isn't it? The few can only control the many by centralisation, and if we all work towards being local in everything that we do, to recognise that communities are built on people doing things for one another with no idea of getting any recompense from it. It's just to help that person. And then you hope one day that will happen for you. And we need to start doing the things that we used to do, which spread that love around, because that's what that's what I'm talking about. In my country where I am, I see no love at all in the eyes of any person that I meet in the day-to-day transaction that I have with people. I don't see it. I see everybody worn out. I see everybody worried about money. And I think we're all playing the tune of these people, Who are these people? Well, you can know them quite simply because they call themselves royalty. And how do you know them from the rest of the people on the planet Earth? Easy. There's two things that they don't do that we do. Number one, they do not pay taxation. And number two, they are above the law. Now, if you apply that two filters to any company in the world, and you suddenly start to see who the real controllers are. You've got YouTube that copies everyone's stuff and then censors us for using copyrighted material. You've got Google scanning in all the books, even though copyright holders have said you shouldn't do this. You've got things like Facebook that are selling people's private data after they said they wouldn't. And all of these three entities pay no taxation. So it's got to show you something about what I'm saying. I honestly think the solution to where we are at the moment is to show more love for each other. And the way we do that is to help each other, to be mindful that someone else is in a bad position and to pay a bit of attention to that, not walk around in our own world ignoring everybody else. I don't know, there's various ways, I'm sure you know that, but that's what I think. I think we need to show love for each other, we need to show unity, we need to call them out when they try to divide us. You can tell the shills when they come in a Discord room because the first thing they do is try to throw up a contentious argument so that they can get us all fighting, and that should tell you all you need to know.
There you go. There's a lovely one there, guys. I love the honesty. Right, let's get the girls back in because I'm going to give another one for a reminder. Joy in our Discord is organising a chat for the girls, so it's girls only. We're going to be in there, boys are out, do you know what I mean? And we're going to be chatting about stuff. Joy's spearheading this, so if you get in our Discord, contact Carnelian and she will guide you in and give you the information that you need to join her girls only live chat How not PC is that? I love it, and that also abides to my new year resolution to be less compliant. So I kind of, right. So I'm going to back off. Nanon, your thoughts? Anything you want to throw out there on your finals?
Yeah, the last one I wanted to talk about was the censorship issue that's happening at the moment. We'd want to sort of wake up to this very quick. Yeah, there's some great comments there in the YouTube live. We've got some fantastic people in the YouTube live chat tonight with some really, really good comments. And one of them was Twitterberg, Googleberg, and Faceberg. I thought that was really good. But we want to catch on to this quick before we end up like 1984, where we have the Ministry of Truth and Re-Education camp. And for the listeners to start recognizing people to follow, because there are some shining lights out there, like Jordan Peterson is one, the STG report, Ria's channel. There are many, many great YouTubers out there who are getting the word out. But they all need support because the censorship is getting stiffer by the day. And especially just to point out that the UN Migration Pact carries within it as well a complete shutdown on any alternative commentary on this global migration pact. And so there are severe penalties for individuals speaking out or speaking negatively about it. And this is global, guys. This is happening. It's there in front of everybody. And also that any media that speak out or have an alternative viewpoint are going to be defunded. And they're so brazen at the moment that it's quite astonishing, the level of hubris that's happening, And the mainstream media are running with one-sided news. Watch what they're not covering as well. How much news are we not getting? The fact that they're running with something is almost like a red flag at this stage now, where we need to be saying, they're running with this. What does that mean? What are they not covering? I mean, we're not getting any balanced reporting of any description. And not only that, but they're trying to shut down any critical thinking of any description as well. And the open bias that they're showing, I've never seen such brazenness and such hubris ever at this point in time. And it's getting worse. So we sort of need to be identifying people who are speaking up, the content makers out there on YouTube. Jordan Peterson is working with a guy now at the moment. He's trying to come up with an alternative social media and platform. So we need to be getting on other social media platforms if we're to retain a voice. There's also talk about an internet bill of rights for the internet. It was mentioned there about data protection. It's just in the internet bill of rights and the data protection issues. That's all part of the censorship issue. I was just wanted to throw that.
No, that's great. It needs to be said, Nanon. There's no doubt about it. Right, let's go to Australia. Dumbbell, your thoughts. You put something out there for the people on your finals.
We've talked about some serious topics today, and the source of the cabal is a good one. We could yarn for ages on that. But I do want folks to know out there that every day is this planet, this whole situation is getting healthier by the day. It mightn't seem it, because this is the first time the powers that be that are doing this have ever got one on the jaw. It's the first time they've ever been challenged like this, let alone been given a kick up the butt that they have been doing. And they're rattling their sabers and they're making themselves look big and omnipresent, but they're not. And trust, everybody's going through a readjustment, but they're still sticking with it. And now isn't a time just to drop your hands and think, we'll get everybody doing their heavy lifting. Everybody's got to combine as well. And could I possibly suggest that if you've got a YouTube channel, use it more now if you've got it. Upload some news stories or whatever you can just to keep pushing at it, because what you're actually doing in a bit of a woo-woo way is adding energy to a grid of intent that's really important, because as you can see, I hate the saying the 100 monkeys dancing, because we're not bloody monkeys, but this is something that got kicked off way back early 2007, 2008, when the binary platform became solid. It's carried on to 2016, and now it's carrying on to where it is now. And Trump's unsettled them, the Q team's unsettled them, they're spitting and hissing all the way down the hole. So everything's good. Take a lot of heart. And my mates in Canada, you're oppressed by your government, you're so disenfranchised. And my mates in Britain, you got the police up in your face with all this political correct nonsense, but we care about you. We're listening all around the planet, and that's the globalism we need, not any faux construct. We need one that forms itself out of its own gravitas and intent, and that's me.
That's some fabulous comments. Right, let's go over to Canada. Let's go, Ed, your thoughts, your finals that you want to put out there.
Well, we've discovered it's become obvious, we're being misled in the mainstream media. We're being misled on Facebook. They're running scripts to control what we see, what we hear. A lot of people are being deplatformed. A lot of voices that need to be heard. MSN, they're controlling the narrative. The government's controlling MSN and the powers that be. The kids in school are being told what to think, not how to think. We need to get people to start thinking more critically. And behind thinking critically, who benefits by what's happening in legislation, in the laws that are being passed? Who benefits in the false narrative that's being passed down to us? Now, the Yellow Vest movement is the answer to many of the problems that the world is having. The Yellow Vest movement is about we the people. Please never forget that. It's about we the people. Now, we have to bring in forced recall legislation by the people, for the people, and we also need to be able to have forced referendums with only 3 or 4% of the population causing this to come into effect. And then we can have referendums on, do we the people accept and do we the people accept the changes in tax legislation? Do we the people accept what they've done to our free speech and all the censorship legislation that's been coming in, and how companies like Alphabet are working with, say, the Canadian government? Maybe we need a Bill of Rights to come in, but we the people can force that in. But first we need the recall legislation and forced referendums. In Canada, we could have a forced referendum on, we want the pipeline built. We need to save Alberta's economy. In Ontario, we've got huge deficits. We could have a forced referendum on what the past government, had we had this power, we could have limited the stupid, insane Green Energy Act that's driven our price of hydro from 3 cents a kilowatt to over 15 cents a kilowatt. And it's pushed industry out of our country. We don't need it. It doesn't work. We can bring it in slowly over time. We can control the government. We, the people, have to learn how to control the government. And it's all through the Yellow Vest movement, bringing in forced legislation and forced referendums. Recall legislation. I lost my train of thought. Sorry. We got to get rid of the Trudeau government. They brought in new legislation that controls the way the election is going to happen. It's limited to 50 days now. That only favors the party that's in power, and all the other insane rules to control future elected governments. You know, people, we're at the last minute. This is going to get ugly. We're being manipulated. We're being controlled. We got to get behind this Yellow Vest movement. And it's simple. We, the people, we need to be able to control our government, not be dictated. Next.
Oh, I love that. Fantastic, Ed. I enjoyed that. Fred, let's hear a bit more from Canada.
Yeah, Ed's absolutely right. The only thing is, you have to join a political party. Not kidding. If you knew how many people actually vote in our leaders to be leaders, you would be ill. You'd be puking your guts out. It is disgraceful. If you don't care about your country, then why stay here? Go to India or something. I've watched the political parties here get hijacked by a small minority because the majority of the people don't got the balls to vote and join the party. I mean, come on, people, do your part. I'm done.
I love you, Fred. I love that. Two Canadians speaking truth there. Right, let's go to the US. Learn, share. Final comments. What do you want to put out there?
Well, the main thing is to remember you do have a choice. It may seem you do not have a choice, but you do have a choice to claim personal sovereignty for yourself and your family. By rights, all rights, we, the people, the citizens, have a responsibility to do our due diligence, do research, hold our representatives accountable. And I would like to close on a note that I'm going to tip my hat to the deep state here in the States for raising the bar so high during the Kavanaugh situation. I guarantee you the rest of them that already made it were looking at each other, folded arms, talking about there's no way I would have passed all of that. I'm not that squeaky. So what they have done inadvertently for us here is raise the bar exponentially higher than it was. And to end my statement to you all, under no certain condition, I love you all. We're coming together accordingly, overlooking petty differences to achieve a common goal. And thank you, Ria, for your awesome platform you provided.
You're welcome. I'm loving it. Scotty, your finals. Okay, I think Scotty's gone maybe. All right, guys. Well, there you go. I've not missed anybody out, have I? I've got everybody. I think I've got everybody. Right, guys, there you go. There's some real honesty. There's some real loveliness. You're hearing the word love a lot, so let me turn my output down because it's kind of moving around a bit. You're hearing loads of good stuff going on, you know. And it's the kind of honesty you don't hear all the time, particularly unscripted. No one knew what they were walking into. They didn't know. So I think there's some real quality comments and honesty and some stuff to work with. It's kind of generalizations on one hand, but on the other hand, there is some real goodness in there. So, guys, this is Ria Bell on Long Live Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. We did a serious one today, right? But this has been my favourite of the Wednesdays so far. So that's my take on it. So we're going to say goodbye to you. I'm going to thank Dumbbell from Australia, Ed Jamin from Canada, Fred from Canada, Joss Ambrose from the UK, LearnShare from the US, Mr. Scabby Underpants Esquire from the UK, Nanon from Ireland, and Scotty Expat Scottish down in Australia there. Thank you very much for coming on. And we're going to say goodbye to you all. Please share this video because I think there's some real goodness in there. And when this is archived, what will help make this found is commenting after the video is archived. That is what gets it out there. And it's a nice palatable format, I think, for people that maybe aren't on the same wavelength. And the mission of Sunday Long Live Radio was to reach new people. And if it's too extreme, you're not going to get any luck with it. But I hope you enjoyed today's show. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say love and peace always. I love you all. And join me Sunday. Go to our website that you'll see in the live chat to get all the times and what's going on. And I will get all your comments on Sunday. And I'll be as silly as I probably usually am, I guess, on a Sunday. But I love you all and I'll see you soon. Love and peace always. Bye-bye.